everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and another paper crafting video tutorial. Today we're going to create a couple of ocean themed cards using Pinkfresh Studio July 2025 release products. And just as always, I love that Pinkfresh Studio gives you lots of options for creating with their collection. So whether you do BetterPress, which I am going to feature in today's video, or you would prefer to stamp your images, you can do that because they provide both the stamped version and the BetterPress version for the sets that I'm using today. So I'm going to be featuring Coastal Paradise and Messages in a Bottle. And we're going to start with Messages in a Bottle, and we're going to start by creating some sort of a decorative background. My vision for this card featured using 3 of the messages in a bottle. Well, to be completely frank, at this point, I wasn't exactly sure how many were going to fit, but using multiple messages in the bottle, kind of stacked like I tend to like to do. I really like this kind of layout on a card, and divide those messages in a bottle with some sentiments. So I decided, because there isn't really a decorative stencil in this collection, to work with this, I wanted to create some sort of interest on the background of my card, while still keeping the focus of the design on the messages in a bottle. To do this, I took these nesting square postage edge designs. I love these from Pinkfresh Studio. I love that it not only has the postage edge design to it, but it has that little piercing as well, which I think just elevates the look totally. And they have these in rectangles, which I am going to use on my next card as well. So really, really fun. And what I'm doing is I am popping these up, and I am using not the smallest square, but the second to smallest square from this set to create this decorative background. So it looks like an entire panel of postage stamps basically. And I'm using a couple of my favorite colors of Spellbinders cardstock. And yes, definitely giving the vibes of that coastal feeling with my cardstock colors. So even filling in these corners, I popped it all up because I did like that little bit of elevation from the background, which is just a shade darker than the lighter shade that I'm using on top. And then my cardstock is very much going to dictate the colors I'm using for today's card, which are all very beachy, soft, to me, very summery. So I love that this is a very summertime-ish release. Once I have all of these on the background, I am going to take some white splatter, and this is a new white splatter product from Simon Says Stamp, and it is very easy it's very liquidy, I think is what I want to say. So it's very easy to spatter, and we are going to add that beachy white spatter all over the background. I'm going to do this by placing my panel in my spatter box and using a small paintbrush to be pretty generous, I think is what I want to say with this. Before we go to BetterPress, before we get those stencils out, all that good stuff. So in addition to being able to stamp or to BetterPress your images, you could also choose not to stencil them if you don't want to. You could simply color them in with your favorite coloring medium, whether that's alcohol ink markers or maybe colored pencils or other kinds of markers, any of those kinds of things. Now, stencils are obviously going to be the simplest, and I think they make everyone look like an amazing colorist, which I love. Plus, really quick and easy. Both of these cards were created in, I would say, about an hour and 45 minutes. There are quite a few steps. And so, there's the cleaning of the stencils and all of that good stuff. Obviously, I cut a lot of that out of the video. Now you can see that I've taken the messages in a bottle. I've placed them in the A2 area on my BetterPress platform. I have inked them up with the BetterPress black ink, and I want to make sure that my Post-it tape that's holding the paper to the cover of my BetterPress is not going to hinder the BetterPress image. And I am using that cotton card panel from, or cardstock, pardon me, cotton cardstock from Spellbinders, which does give you the best results with the BetterPress. And then we're going to simply take the stencils. I'm going to use my magnets for the Glassboard Studio and hold those in place. I did choose to use some detail blending brushes, especially for any area that is super small. This really gets into those small areas. You're not having to load up a massive brush with those ink colors. And I'm using all Pinkfresh Studio inks today for this. And we're going to simply start with stencil 1 and work our way through. Now, one thing I do want to say about these stencils, extraordinarily detailed, which is fantastic when you are stenciling a bunch of small images. A lot of times, I want to say, you know, I'm doing bigger stenciling images, and by bigger, it's not tons bigger, but florals and things like that. These are very detailed. These are not giant card filling images. We're going to be able to get multiple for both sets I'm doing today on our cards. And so these small blending brushes work great for that, but the stencils are so detailed. Look how incredibly detailed these are. All the little areas, they are numbered, very easy to read. And I'm simply going to go through. There might be multiple colors also added to each stencil. In fact, most of the time there is, which is another great benefit of using your small blending brushes to apply the color. You can start to see these take shape. I also meant to mention, as I was doing the BetterPress step of this, you'll notice my sentiments are kind of at an angle. I did choose to do the two BetterPress sentiments because, as I mentioned, we are going to be dividing those down the center of our card with our messages in a bottle. Now, even though I am stenciling all 4 of these, really at this point, I wasn't exactly sure how many were going to fit on my card, which ones I was going to choose to use, maybe if I was going to do multiple cards. I hadn't exactly decided yet. And so the stencil obviously does all of them at the same time. This is another great thing. I do a lot of mass producing with Pinkfresh Studio. I'm not in this video today, but you could very easily mass produce a bunch of these cards if you wanted to. I chose all very beachy colors, so beachy reds, oranges, yellows, obviously those oceany teal colors to match the cardstock background that we have. And I love how this looks. And then of course, some nice warm browns for the rolled up message in a bottle and the corks. Look at the detail on this. You guys, look how teeny tiny some of those areas are on the ship sails. Very, very cute. Another idea for these that I think would be adorable, obviously I didn't do it today, but just something to throw out there for you guys. If you have some shelf type of dies, stamps, how cute would it be to create a card with like some shelves on the background, like building a scene basically, and put these little message in a bottle, like you've built little ships in a bottle, I guess, and put them on shelves, maybe with some other beachy type of, you know, little images. There's been a lot of releases that feature nautical type of releases, and you could totally build like a little scene, like looks like a wall in a house or something, basically. That was kind of a fun idea that I was thinking of as I was working on this. Okay, so we about have everything stenciled. One of the other amazing things about Pinkfresh Studio is that the dies for Pinkfresh Studio images, when you are stenciling multiples, die cut everything with one pass of your machine. The sentiments are going to be separate, but the 4 bottles here are all going to get die cut at once. That die is connected, but it cuts them out individually, and I love that. Now, at this point, I had not actually spattered my background. I know I talked about it a minute ago as I finished it up, but as I was looking at my messages in a bottle, I was like, oh, we definitely need some spatter. In fact, Both of our cards are going to need a little bit of this distress. It is very subtle. It doesn't cover up your image at all. And I like how it adds kind of a beachy, watery feel to the card. This product from Simon Says Stamp is pretty watery, but it still gives you that wonderful white spatter that we all love. Now I'm going to, while this is drying, and it does dry pretty quickly, but I'm trying to be kind of careful, I'm going to put foam adhesive on the back of my bottles, and then we are going to start attaching the bottles and the sentiments to our card. All of these are going to be popped up with foam adhesive. Starting with the middle bottle and then working my way at the top and the bottom. And then we're going to simply fill in the space in between with those BetterPress sentiments. Really simple, but very beautiful, very effective. And I love that the background is that serene, beachy type of feel. Adds a little bit of interest, but yet still, as I mentioned, keeps the focus on the lovely message in a bottle set. So drifting by to say hello, our friendship is unsinkable. I just love that. I feel like it goes together so beautifully. There are some other sentiments, or at least one or two other sentiments in this set. Not BetterPress sentiments. There's one more sentiment. It says, "In a sea of people, you are my favorite," which would be beautiful maybe on the inside. Now I'm going to take some glossy accents and we're going to completely cover the bottle. Go all in. And this is going to require some dry time. So I actually allowed this to dry overnight, laying flat. You don't want it to be tipped or tilted any way because the glossy accents, as it is wet, will run a little bit. So make sure you can leave it laying flat on your desk, whatever, come back a little bit later. I would say probably in a couple of hours because that is a really thick application of the glossy accents, and I really should have done this step prior to the glossy accents, but I did not. I'm taking some Spellbinders Silver Mix Gems, and I'm going to scatter those almost like little bubbles coming up out. But I like the little touch of sparkle here. Now, I know the glossy accents slightly distorts the images underneath, but when the glossy accents is dry, it is going to be completely clear, but glossy, glazed, and it's going to give us the look of glass bottles. In my opinion, this is what elevates this card design more than anything else, as it gives that illusion of glass bottles. When the glossy accents is completely dry, I did take a white gel pen and go over the top of each bottle just with a little swipe of my pen to give it a highlight. Okay, we're gonna move on to our card number 2, the Coastal Paradise. And this stencil set not only colors in the little beachy, beachside property and all of the little palm trees and things, but it also does our background. And keeping with the same color combination, we are going to start inking up the background of this design. Now remember, I said I was using the postage dies from Pinkfresh Studio for both of my cards today. I started with the postage dies on the previous card. This one, they are not going to make an appearance quite yet. We want to go ahead and stencil this entire background, building our beautiful beachy scene. And we're actually going to die cut this entire panel with a rectangle die. Any kind of rectangle die will do. I kind of just kept with the postage theme because I love these dies from Pinkfresh Studio. They are not part of this release. I should mention that as well. They are all previous releases, but I love to incorporate things from my stash into new products and new projects. That's one of the things I'm really quite passionate about, making the most of those products that we already own. Okay, so when we peel off the stencil, there is our background scene. It will slightly lighten as it dries, and I'm just going to set it aside for a minute. I've gone ahead and better pressed the Coastal Paradise right on that cotton card panel, just like I did with the first card, using the BetterPress black ink, and we're going to use same colors of ink that we used in the messages in a bottle card to add color to our beachy scene. So beachy oranges and light beachy reds, aquas, kind of sand color brown and yellows, and obviously a little green for our palm trees are all going to be featured. But you can see the images are really small. So again, this is where our small blending brushes come in so handy, especially if you want to use multiple colors amongst everything that you are adding color to. The other thing about these stencils that I love, as opposed to maybe coloring these images in with markers or watercolor, etc., is the images are pretty small. And a lot of times with small images, I have found myself being drawn to these stencils lately, just because the amount of shading with markers tends to be minimal with small steps or small stamps or BetterPress images. And so I just like the quick and easy way of adding color to my images here. So really, really love how this is looking. Oh, so pretty. It's going to look amazing. It doesn't look like much when you're originally working on it, but then when you pull the stencil off and see all that awesome color, and of course a little fresh pear and the grassy knoll for the greenery really elevates this one. I like that little touch of green on this card. I even took a little bit of my teal color and put it right in the center of the palm trees just for that nice variegation, a little bit of shading, I suppose. But this is going to create an adorable little scene that we're going to then build on the background. Now you could put this entire beachy scene right on that stenciled background. It is absolutely beautiful. It looks amazing. But what I wanted to do was find some sort of interesting and fun way to elevate the design just a little bit without taking away from the beauty of this card and the imagery. And for me, a lot of times that is something as simple as a shaker card. So we are going to create a shaker card. We are going to use the postage edge rectangle dies to cut that out just for a fun little decorative look. You could use any shape you want. Maybe you have some arches or ovals. I did contemplate using an oval, but we don't want to get rid of or discard any of that beautiful stenciled background. So we're actually going to utilize the whole thing. I call this the seamless shaker, where you utilize whatever you've inked or stenciled or stamped from the outside of the shaker to the inside. So we're going to keep it all basically, but we are going to die cut it so that we have a little bit of depth and dimension. And then we're going to be able to place some of the images from this inside the shaker and some on the outside of the shaker, which is another really fun way to kind of give you that beautiful seamless effect, but still add lots of interest. Okay, we almost have everything stenciled here. You can see there's a lot of stencils in this set. We want to get all that wonderful color. Look how pretty it is. Oh, and then we're going to die cut it with the coordinating dies. And just like before, even though we have all these little images, the die cuts them all out at once. It might be my favorite thing about Pinkfresh Studio is that the dies cut everything out at one time, no lining up a million dies. Taking the second largest postage rectangle frame, I'm going to center it, tape it in place, and run it through my die cut machine to die cut from the center of this panel. Then, as I mentioned, we're going to keep the whole thing, but I also decided at this point we need some of that white spatter. We need to distress up our background a little bit and add that interest to that. So I'm taking my white spatter and I'm going to be pretty generous with this. We want this to dry a little bit, obviously, before we start assembling our card. So I really should have done this before I probably did all of my stenciling, but I didn't, and we'll just set this aside to dry for a little bit and then we can come back and put it all together. I think it's going to be super fun. Okay, I did wait a little bit and let that dry, came back probably in about 20 minutes or so. I actually got my supper started, and I am going to hold the frame in place on my card front, glue the inside piece directly to my card base, and then on the back of the frame, we're going to run a bead of glue all the way around, and we're going to place an acetate panel right on the back. This is actually some of my favorite acetate panels. This is one from Hero Arts. I love them because they're already cut to A2 size. And then we're going to start building our scene. I haven't put foam adhesive to start building the shaker yet, but we will here in a minute. And we're going to place our sentiment, place our image on the front, but I also, as I mentioned, want to have some of the elements in the back, which is going to allow for some really fun layering. So let's go ahead and put this here inside of our shaker. I'm going to double check that that's kind of going where I think I want it to go. And we're going to glue the larger piece right on the front, just like so. And then we have our sentiment, which is going to go on the front of the shaker panel window right down here along the bottom. And I do want to make sure that I leave room for some of those smaller elements. Our larger palm tree is going to go here on the front, so it can kind of go to that outer edge, which also helps with the seamless design of this. We've got our little beach chairs, we have our beach ball, and then there is one additional palm tree, and that one is going to go inside the shaker. Again, that's going to give us that beautiful kind of seamless look and appeal. So let's just add a little glue to that. And find where we want that to go so it's still visible but has that layered effect, and that looks good. Now at this point, I do take my foam adhesive and go all the way around, butting up the foam adhesive right next to each other. What I should have done first is I did want to take another sentiment from the Coastal Paradise set and stamp it right on the window with StazOn ink. Luckily, I did do this after I applied the foam. I know, again, I wish I hadn't, but I did take the chance and go ahead and do it. And I am going to stamp it in the upper right corner of the scene, and it's going to say, take time to relax. I just felt like it added a fun little touch up there. So I'm going to put it in my MISTI real carefully. I have re-inked my white StazOn fairly recently. It's been it's probably been a couple weeks actually, which is almost better. So it's not super, super juicy, but it is still, it's not dried out. So I feel like I got a good impression. So I'm going to ink it up, stamp it right there on the window, and it was actually perfect. And I'm so glad I added that little touch there. Okay, now we're ready to put it all together. In the well of the window, I am going to put these little glass beads. They are something I've had in my stash forever. I used up the rest of them. So it's not an overly full shaker, but I kind of like that for this card. I don't want to cover up the design. I'm going to peel off the backing paper from my foam adhesive, take the card base to this, and then shake it up. And I love how it looks like beads of water almost. And again, it's a fun shaker element without taking away from this design. Then we're going to take some Teal Spellbinders gems, and we are going to finish the front of our card with a scattering of a few little gems here. And I like to use my Simon Says Stamp embellishment wand to help pick those little sticker embellishments up and pop them in place. I used silver on the first card, but I did go with teal on this one. And here are both of my cards. Now, just like I did for the message in a bottle, and it's actually still drying at this point, I'm going to take glossy accents and add it to a few areas on this card. So like the roof, the umbrellas, maybe the windows, anything here on the front, I just added a little glossy accents to, and then I let that completely dry. Okay, friends, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me today for these 2 coastal themed cards featuring Pinkfresh Studio July 2025 release products. The supplies I used are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today for another paper crafting tutorial. I love being able to share with this incredible community of crafters. I want to give a huge shout out and special thank you to my amazing Patreon members. If you're interested in joining Patreon, please click the link in the description underneath the video here on YouTube. Patreon is a private community where you can support more of what I do. There is exclusive content, information, and behind-the-scenes content. Top-tier members will receive a handmade birthday card during your birthday month, access to D-Stash, and monthly exclusive lives, plus so much more. We would love to have you join our growing community.